2.3 is on multi-step equations. So now remember that branch I told you about? This is where we start branching out into weird situations. Solving based off of what we did so far is kind of like the base. And so what we are going to do now is we are going to take the base and we're going to take you one step this direction, one step that direction, one step over there, one step over there. Then we'll take 2 steps out here, maybe 3 steps out here. But again, all of them will lead back to what you know how to do, which is the base. So what you just practiced is the base idea of solving. What we're about to be getting into for pretty much the rest of this chapter is how to take a problem that's not on base, get back to base, and then do what we've been trained to do. So every day you should have taken your time to get accustomed to working with each new type of equation. Today what we're going to do is look at problems where you must perform a simplifying step before starting your solving process. Mentally, I think it's best to separate the simplifying process from the solving process. Otherwise, you think that everything that you're doing is to solve, and it's not. We know that simplifying is different. We actually saw it in Chapter 1. In Chapter 1, we learned that 7 meets 4x, which is 28x. We learned that 7 meets negative 3, which is negative 21. That's not solving. That is writing this in a simpler form. That is writing it in a better form. And so again, that is simplifying. Distributing is simplifying. Another thing here, we saw this where we had like terms and we took our x's. 9 minus 12 is negative 3x. We bring down our minus 3. That's not solving. This is me writing this in a simpler way, in a better way. And so it's important that you understand these are the 2 simplifying steps that you'll see in today's work. So in multi-step equations, which is what the title is, it's more about dealing with these things in your problems and then solving than thinking that you're solving in every step, because again, you really are not solving every step until you get home back to base, and you'll see what I mean. When you distribute or combine terms, you are organizing your problem before you solve it. Add the following idea to your solving skills, and if you add this to your thinking, you'll be fine. I cannot solve until everything is simplified. And so you can't just solve everything, like washing dishes. I can't wash the dishes until there's water in the sink and soap in the water and the dishes are ready to go and whatever I have room to put it. I have to organize before I can work, and that's how solving works. So in this game that we're talking about, the first thing you have to do is make sure you're ready. So even though we are solving these questions, every step that we do is not a solving step. For example, this is not a solving step. This is simplifying. That turns into 2/3 x. And here's a lesson you're going to need to know, because again, this is something you should know. When I multiply a number, let's make this a 6. Anyway, when I multiply a number times a fraction, I multiply the number to the top. So 6 times 2 is 12, and leave the bottom number alone, over 3 equals 4. So again, that is a simplifying step. I took the fraction times x, I took the fraction times this number, that's what I ended up with. Everything else comes down. I can't do anything with 2/3 x, but 12 over 3 turns into 4. This was silly of me, but I guess it does work that way. Let's make this into a 14 just to be, so we actually have something to do. And then the last thing we do is we work this out. Well, again, in what we learned, the number that is added usually goes first, unless it's one of those weird ones. So that means 2/3 x equals 10. And then from there, we follow our training with fractions. Remember, our training with fractions is get rid of the bottom number first, since that's being divided. We multiply. Since that's being multiplied, I divide. Sorry about all that movement, but again, it's hard to make fraction questions that are perfect all the time, because I make them up off the top of my head and sometimes I forget what I'm doing. So again, that is a 14, 14, 14, and then going from there I ended up with 10 and all the other things. But again, my solving did not start until I got here, because that is when I moved the 4 away and when I moved the 3 and I moved the 2, but everything else was me distributing. Look at this one here. Again, when you see it, it's intimidating, but it's only intimidating because you can't solve this yet. We have to get back to base. And so what I learned is that if I have 2 x's on the same side that can go together, I must put them together. That if I have 2 constants that can be put together, I must put them together. Look at where we are. This is where we start to solve, because this is where my training comes in. So now I move the number that is being added by subtracting it. I divide the number that's attached to x because it's multiplied, and there I go. And the last one that you're going to see, again, new information. Again, all these questions are going to be quiz and test questions, so make sure you learn them, practice them, and again, if you want to do well on tests, you just want to keep hitting similar question. Here, first thing I got to do is make sure I get rid of this distributive property, but there is a key to getting rid of this. I don't know why that is here. There's a key here that you need to look out for. It's easy to get your 7x, it's easy to get your minus 3x, but what most people are going to put is minus 12. But you must pay attention, which is why this is a test and quiz question, that this is negative and that is negative, which means it will make a positive 12, not a negative 12. And you'll notice it because when you do your homework, you're going to keep getting it wrong until you finally make that shift. We still cannot solve, though, because this is not simplified. Remember this word here, I cannot solve until everything is simplified. I can't solve yet. So what I'm going to do is put my like terms together, getting 4x plus 12 equals 20. Now I can go through my solving process. So I will subtract 12, 4x equals 8. I will divide by 4, x equals 2, and that is all. Again, this is really not a tough thing to do. If you're having issues with it, it's because number one, you're allowing it to intimidate you. Number two, you don't know how to distribute. You don't know how to combine your like terms, or you haven't really been learning the solving steps. But it's typically, if you're having an issue right now, it has nothing to do with these questions. It has to do with stuff that you learned earlier, which is why it's important, if you have issues with this, that you ask me so that I can figure out where your weakness is and I can help you to strengthen that weakness so it does not start to cause you issues. Because all we are doing now, as I said, is we are now taking base for pretty much the rest of the chapter, and we're going to take you different spots away from base and see if you can find your way back in this game that we're playing. And as long as you can remember that that's our general setup, it should be okay. I think in my younger years I didn't realize that it was going on like that, and so my students thought that every new lesson they learned was more solving. But again, solving is just 5 decisions: add a number, subtract a number, multiply or divide a number. These decisions are not solving decisions. That is algebra, that is distribute, that is combine terms. Now we solve. So just keep that in mind. Answer that last question that you see, and again, let's get some practice on this. Good luck.